This is a story a bunch of you sent me because you saw this in ProPublica and you really wanted to talk about it. Basically, Republicans in Ohio, they have taken full advantage of a gerrymandered state and they have already passed a voucher bill. They've spent nearly $1 billion with a B dollars on school vouchers over the past year. And that has allowed students to use taxpayer dollars to cover the costs of private school, usually Christian schools, right? And apparently, though, that's not enough because this is what was posted this week by ProPublica. Let me show you this. Here's the headline. In an unprecedented move, Ohio is funding the construction of private religious schools. And check this out, like right here. Under a bill passed by the Ohio legislature this summer, the state is now providing millions of dollars in grants directly to religious schools, most of them Catholic, to renovate buildings, build classrooms, improve playgrounds, and more. Why are Ohio taxpayers on the hook to help Christian schools become bigger and better and more attractive? How did that even happen? And the short answer, I'm going to try to explain what happened here, is that, okay, earlier this year, Ohio, the lawmakers, the Republican lawmakers, they passed a budget. It's a huge budget. We're talking, I think it was like $70 billion, maybe, something like that. It's in the billions, but they passed a massive budget for the state this year. And of course, when you have a budget that is that big, everyone wants their little pet things to be funded. And no one has the ability, even with the staff, to go through line by line and figure out whether everything is good spending or bad spending, right? But in that bill, it included roughly $4 million in grants to private schools. Specifically, that means Christian schools, right? Where did this idea even come from? Well, check this out. It came from a right-wing organization that is actually affiliated with Americans for Prosperity, which is a group run by the Koch brothers, if you're familiar with them. But look at what this says. This is from the Buckeye Institute, which is affiliated with that Koch brothers program. This is from April of 2024. In this new policy memo, this research fellow builds on an earlier recommendation to create a permanent revolving loan fund using a portion of the one-time Strategic Community Investments Fund, which is a long way of saying, hey, we want to give money to private schools, but we can't just say we want to give money to private schools. But there is a way to tuck those gifts into the budget under this umbrella of one-time Strategic Community Investment Funds, because it's not part of the budget. It's just a one-time gift to help people out. Okay, so let's take a look at what they did. This is back to the budget here. But you could see if you click on like, okay, capital appropriations and stuff, look above my head, one-time Strategic Community Investment Fund. And you could see what was funded here. Well, let's look at that tab. You could see this, it's a 30-page document. And I'm just scrolling through. There's a lot of stuff going on here, right? But just look at page 1. By county, they organized this. And you could see we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars being given to various community projects that just need to be fixed up, renovated one time, then you don't need to come back to it next year. Fine. And generally, those are good things. Like, I want the government fixing that stuff. Like Lima in Ohio, Veterans Memorial Hall improvements. Okay, fine. They want to improve that. I hope that's a thing worthy of the time. But look at this right here above my head here. Temple Christian School building expansion. $250,000. Just a random Christian school getting $250,000 to expand their building? What is happening there? Right? And there's more like this. Let me see if I could find. Look at this one. Mansfield Christian School improvements. $1.5 million. What improvements? What are we doing? What are we giving these people that they need? Right under that, you could see the Avita Comprehensive Cancer Center. They get less money for the cancer center than this Christian school gets for vague improvements. So, okay, if you go through this list, we are talking roughly $4 million going to explicitly Christian Catholic schools across the state. Okay. And if the argument here from Republicans is, well, we're not funding indoctrination, we're funding playgrounds, we're funding, other classrooms in these buildings. Those are secular projects, so we are allowed to fund those. That might be the argument that they're making. However, you could see where that goes, because let's say a Catholic school needed to renovate its playground because no one wanted to play there, and it cost, I don't know, $10,000. Well, if the state gives you $10,000 for the playground, that now frees up $10,000 in your budget to put towards religious indoctrination. So when the state gives these private Christian schools money, $250,000, $1,000,000, whatever it is, that is money the school doesn't have to spend on secular stuff that they can now spend on indoctrination, right? That's the problem with these gifts. And again, one of the problems is this stuff is so vague. They're funding enhancements, improvements, renovation, that no one seems to know what the money's actually being used for. So let me take you back to the ProPublica article. Check this out. ProPublica contacted administrators at each of these schools to ask what they will be using their new taxpayer money on, but they either didn't answer or said that they didn't immediately know. How do you not immediately know? Like what? You think the state just gave you $1,000,000 and you're like, I don't know what that's for, and then pocket the cash? And if you do know and you don't want to answer, that's shady. So again, very disturbing all around. Like, I don't know which option is more concerning, that they know what the money is used for and they don't want to say it, or they genuinely don't know what the money is being used for, because why the hell is anyone giving them that much money? There was one article recently. Check this out. This is from August in a local newspaper in Ohio. And check this out. Temple Christian dedicates new elementary school. And you could see this in the first paragraph. Renovations are finished at the new Temple Christian Elementary School just in time for the new school year. So this is one of the ministries that got money. They were getting so big, they wanted to build not just a Temple Christian school, but they wanted to separate it. Here's the elementary school. Maybe here's the high school. Whatever they wanted to do. So they just built this thing. And look at what the leader of this place said. The Ed Choice Scholarship, that's the voucher program in Ohio. The voucher program makes it more affordable. There are plenty of families who say, oh, that looks good, but we can't afford it. Now you can afford it. If you make less than $140,000 for a family of four, you're going to come here for free, thanks to vouchers. And I want you to think about that for a second. Look at what's happening here. Ohio passed a voucher program. That takes money out of public schools, because now parents can say, I want to send my kid not to my local public school, but to a private school, maybe a private Christian school. A lot of people are taking advantage of that. That's money taken out of the public school system. That money goes to private Christian schools who were not going to get that money or those students beforehand. Now they have a lot of students. They have more students than they can handle. So now they go back to the state and they say, hey, you know how you're giving us all this money for vouchers? Well, we don't have enough space. Can we also have money to build new classrooms and a new playground for all these students? So the voucher program is leading to these schools saying we need bigger buildings. And now the state's giving them money for bigger buildings, which will help house more students who are using the vouchers. Like, it's all a big cycle that benefits religion. You know what I mean? That's very troubling. Just to give you some context for how many people are using these, this is a Washington Post article from this summer. In Ohio, more than 150,000 students are paying tuition with vouchers this year. That is insane. That's too many. When vouchers for students with autism and other disabilities who typically seek specific services are removed from the list, the portion going toward religious education rises to 98%. All these kids, all these vouchers are going to religious schools so they can be indoctrinated, and the taxpayers are paying for it. And again, this is one of the people ProPublica quoted about this story is William Phyllis, who's the executive director of the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding. So, not a fan of vouchers. But look at this last paragraph here. They get their foot in the door with a few $1,000,000 in infrastructure funding. It sets a precedent, and eventually hundreds of millions will be going to private school construction. I think that guy has a point right there, because if you think about this, like, if they just sneak these budget requests, these building requests into the budget, and no one really makes a big deal about it, there's nothing stopping the next budget from having even more money for Christian schools. And vouchers were once a relatively small fraction of the budget, and now it's like $1 billion thing that Ohio taxpayers have to pay for. That's what this dude is saying now. These renovations, $4 million for a state budget, that's nothing. But give it a year or two, and you might see hundreds of millions of dollars going to fund the building of Christian schools. One other thing to show you here. This is the Ohio Constitution. Look at what it says about the last sentence here. No religious or other sect or sects shall ever have any exclusive right to or control of any part of the school funds of this state. Basically, religious schools are not supposed to get any public money. So how are these Republicans able to funnel millions of dollars to these places? Because they pretend like they're doing it in a secular way. We're funding a playground, not creationism. We are funding a new building or a new annex of a building. We're not funding prayer in schools. Their argument, the Republicans' argument, is we're not violating the Constitution because we're not directly funding religion with public money. We're indirectly funding religion with public money. You know what I mean? Whatever spin they use, though, it all benefits religious indoctrination with the help of taxpayer dollars. And then public schools, which are already underfunded, they will continue to struggle. And when that happens, legislators are going to say, well, public schools are struggling. You know what we should do? We should give more money to Christian schools and more money to Christian buildings so they can expand and get more capital investments. Like, it's an insane thing that you can't stop unless you vote these people out of office. For what it's worth, this November, on the Ohio ballot, voters could put an end to political gerrymandering. They could flip the state Supreme Court, which is currently 4-3 Republican. They could flip that and get rid of the Republican majority. They could also reelect Democrat Sherrod Brown as the U.S. Senator, which would help Democrats maintain control of the U.S. Senate, which confirms judges. There's so much on the line if you're in Ohio. And I say this as someone from Illinois, where virtually nothing is on the line except local races. If you live in Ohio, if you know someone who lives in Ohio, make sure they are voting. Make sure they're voting for the right things and the right people, because your vote actually matters a lot more in a place like Ohio. I'm going to stop there for now. What questions we got here? Should Muslims and Jews have to pay taxes for a Christian school? What if the opposite happens? Sounds like a lawsuit in the making. I'm halfway with you here. I don't mind people having to pay taxes, even if the taxes are not going to things they personally like. But when it comes to religion, like, this is something that is explicitly forbidden, even in the Ohio Constitution. No one should have to pay taxes that are meant to promote one particular religious belief or even the idea of religion in general. That's what should be prohibited. So, will there be a lawsuit in the making? I don't know. I don't know if any group wants to take on this fight right now. But that's the problem. Like, not that taxpayer dollars are going somewhere I don't like, but it's going somewhere it shouldn't be going at all. It shouldn't even be an option. That's the issue here. And by the way, there's nothing stopping, technically, Jewish schools, Muslim private schools from getting access to this funding either. But I'm not counting on Ohio Republicans to pass along millions of dollars to local Muslim schools.